while I didn't have what I envisioned as the ideal mother daughter relationship as a child, because my mother wasn't in the home every day, what I learned was that we can create the relationship that we want to have with our children, with our daughters specifically as women and as mothers. We have the ability to do that. And that at the end of the day, it doesn't come down to the acts that happen um, during childhood. It comes down to what both people, women, are willing to invest into the health of the space between them and around them.
Yeah, for each other,
Yeah,
for everyone involved.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
it comes down to the work that you're willing to do as a mother to understand what it is that you're bringing to the table and how that's being translated to your daughter in the relationship that you have with her. My daughter and I have done amazing work with each other and for each other. Um, and she has never said she hated me to my face that I know of. I don't know. She may have whispered it under her breath. I never heard it. But I do know, I remember looking at one of her, and it really was by accident. I was not digging through her stuff, but her journal was kind of like flipped open or something. And she wrote in there how much she couldn't stand me and how
Oh
horrible I was.
no.
And we joke about that sometimes. She was about 12. Um, but sometimes it can be challenging to hear your child tell you that you're imperfect.
Before my mom passed away and we got a cancer diagnosis that gave us time to like talk through all this. And so I kind of realized what I was doing because when we talked through it, we both laughed. She said, when you came around, I was not ready to give up what I was doing. And she was like, you were this mirror of accountability that just got placed in front of my face. And she was like, I was not having it. And we both just laughed because she said, I was trying to have a good time and you were looking for a mom. And I was like, and so we struggled with that for years.
What did she do with that? What did she do with that? The tension between her being kind of on the path of her life, whatever that looked like, partying, or maybe it was like whatever it was, and then you stepping forward with the needs that a young woman has from her mother. What did that look like?
It was back and forth. The funny thing was sometimes I would feel her leaning into the role and she would try to swoop in and do mom things and, um, I was in school at the time and had lots of girlfriends, and she would take us out. And she's paying for everyone's meal, and she's wanting to, make sure everyone's taken care of. And then other times, I would be like, "Hey, I need to buy this book," or I just got a flat tire, and she's like, "Figure it out." And I would get really frustrated because I was like, "Wait, okay, it was she would pull me in and push me back, pull me in and push me back, and I didn't realize till later that her mom died when she was 4, and so my mom wasn't mothered. So my expectations of her, the way I wanted to be mothered, she was like, "Girl, I didn't get it either."
Mm.
She's like, "I am trying my very best," and I think she was trying to heal, and it was a yo-yo. But she did the best that she could. I believe that.
It's really interesting. I talk a lot about the power that we have in and the opportunity that's available to us when we recognize that we are simply a channel through which all the experiences before us has the opportunity to flow to the next generation or to those folks with whom we interact. And what strikes me in what you just shared is I had some of those expectations too. All the mothers I knew, they were like, baby, I'm a cook for you.
Yes.
It's like They were the mothers where you could just crawl up in their laps, and they were there, and they were I had this image of a mother. And this just doesn't just happen with mother-daughter relationships. It happens with so many relationships where you have this image of what a mother, a father, a daughter, a son, a lover, a husband, whatever is supposed to be. And and then we judge people on their ability, if we're not careful, to live up to this image that we have. And I think there's something really beautiful, albeit painful, that can happen sometimes when we just allow people to be who they are and allow them to show up as who they are. Because no matter how many times I told my mother, sometimes angrily, sometimes sadly, that I needed that mother. I needed that mother, that I had the vision, right? I needed her to be a mother who never decided to let my father take care of us. I needed her to be a mother who found a way to support herself in the way that we had grown accustomed to during their marriage.
Non-traditional adoption story. And so I came into this world in a beautiful way, a way of sacrifice, a way of just real persistence on my dad's part, the one who adopted me. And I think the whole thing is beautiful. Looking back at the adoption now, looking at how amazing the agreement and setup was. So, my dad adopted me on his own, gay, white, single man who really wanted a child. He always wanted a family. It just wasn't working out with his partners and different men that he was dating. It just never got serious enough for him to start a family. And so he and my mom were friends and they met. He owned the bar, she was a regular, and they met. And that was his pathway to becoming a father. That was his way, and my mom needed a pathway to have some space in her life without being a mother at that time. She already had my brother, and my mom was not living in a way where she could take care of me, and she wanted a way out. She wanted to have an abortion, and that's not what was in the cards for me. And so she met my father, and he stepped in and they created this agreement and they ended up doing a formal adoption. But I was adopted, taken from the hospital with my father, and just he and I for 18 months before he got sick. But the most pivotal moment in my life was being having this non-traditional adoption to a man who had so much love to share and gave it all to me. And that's how I came into this world.
Wow. There's so much there. There's so much there that I personally can appreciate, being the daughter of a father who was a single parent. While I also had a relationship with my mother was an amazing woman who struggled with mental illness, and she was unable to take care of myself, my brother, and my sister. I think there's something to having the experience of a man who steps in as a primary caretaker to a daughter. Because when you don't allow that communication to flow, you shatter the mirror that your daughter has, and you force her to create a wall to make up for the fact that that mirror hasn't been allowed to happen. So I commend your mother for showing up as herself. What was your mother's name?
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. I commend Elizabeth for showing up as Elizabeth and giving you Elizabeth.
Now that I'm a mom, I'm like, oh my gosh, I get it. Like, I am doing this. Thank you for saying that.